Hello and welcome to Easter week at our house. Spring has sprung. Football is in full swing. We had a few changes to the schedule, so the menu that I had prepared got a little bit skewed. But I am starting off with a Crockpot beef caldereta. Beef caldereta is a Filipino dish not traditionally cooked in a crock pot. However, it does require some beef here, so I'm using some beef chuck roast that I have just cut up into large pieces. Again, this is a crock pot meal, so I am making really big pieces of beef here. I'm seasoning them with salt and pepper on both sides to coat, and then I'm just going to set this aside while I prep the skillet with some hot oil. I'm going to sear these off to get some nice color, just to seal in some juices, and then we're going to go on with the recipe. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I wanted you to know that any recipes that I do have will be linked down below in the description box, so do check that out. I also have timestamps as my videos are rather lengthy, so feel free to skip around if you would like to do so. So here we go. The beef is on the skillet now. Again, just searing these off for a couple minutes on each side. I'm just using a splatter screen here just to make sure I try to keep my stovetop as greaseless as possible. So here we go. I'm just flipping this over, and again, you can see a bit of color here. I'm cooking this off in 2 batches because I have a lot of meat that I need to cook, but I'm just going to do that with both batches, and then I'm going to set that aside and continue with some of the vegetables that I have prepped and chopped. And just a note here, I do not normally mix raw meat with cooked meat. However, this is going to finish cooking in the crock pot, so I'm really not concerned about contamination, cross-contamination, that kind of thing. But yes, ordinarily I would never ever mix cooked meat with raw meat or use the same utensils. Anyway, just wanted to put that in there in case you were wondering why the heck she is using the same plates, the same utensils. Anyway, that is the reason, because it's going to keep cooking in the crock pot. You can see all those lovely brown bits. I'm going to try to now deglaze. So I did add some oil, additional oil, so that the pan wouldn't be too dry. I'm adding onions, some smashed garlic, some tomato here. So all the juices that will release from the tomatoes and the onions, that's going to help bring up all those brown bits. So I'm going to let this saute for a little bit. Again, this is going to keep cooking in the crock pot, so it doesn't need to be fully cooked, but just trying to get all that flavor from the bottom of the skillet. I tell you, I do not cook Filipino food a lot in this household. However, just the smells from just the tomatoes and the onions and garlic, I don't know, it really just sent me back to my childhood. So I really need to start cooking some more Filipino dishes. It takes me back to just growing up, good memories with the family. So I have now the meat seared. Don't leave any of the juices on the plate, because that's some good stuff right there, going into the crock pot. And then I'm going to add to that the onions, garlic, and the tomato that I sauteed up. Again, make sure you use all the juices from the skillet. I'm putting that in here. Spread that around a bit, and then I'm going to add some chopped carrot. This was about 1.5 carrots. I've got a couple bay leaves here. Again, recipe will be down below. This is chicken bouillon that I mixed with water. I don't really use chicken stock and that stuff. I just use the Knorr chicken flavored bouillon. So I'm putting that in here, and then I've got some soy sauce. I don't measure, too accurately. I just kind of eyeball everything. And then this is tomato sauce. Now, I remembered I had this in the freezer, so I'm just sticking the whole thing in there. It's gonna, it's gonna defrost and it's gonna cook down eventually. So here you go. I am checking after several hours. I did cook this on low, and you can see the big blob of tomato sauce there, so I am just going to mix that around now so that all of the ingredients can incorporate. We've got all the flavors going. You can see all the juices released from the meat and the veggies. Yeah, it smelled so good. I can just remember it smelled really, really good. So I'm going to let that finish cooking. I do have a couple more ingredients that I need to add, and then we will pretty much be done. So these are the bell peppers that I chopped up a little bit earlier in the day. I have actually turned I will turn the crock pot off. I am letting this kind of cook with just the residual heat from the crock pot. That is some peanut butter that I'm adding. I think traditionally you're supposed to use liver spread. I didn't have any liver spread. So they said a good substitution would be peanut butter. So that's what I have there, is just some natural peanut butter. Mixing all the ingredients through. Again, as I was mentioning, I'm just letting this cook now, or letting the bell peppers kind of soften with the residual heat. I do like some texture in my veggies, so just giving that a taste, see what it's all about. And there you go. That is the finished beef caldereta in the crock pot. Really, really super easy. Beef was so tender, and this was just like, hello, 1990, 1980, like childhood. That's it right there. Next up, I am making some black pepper chicken. This was not on my original menu that I had mentioned in my grocery haul and meal plan in the previous video. However, I did have some celery that I wanted to use up. So here we go. I'm just prepping some veg here. It's very simple ingredients, just some onions, some celery. We've got the chicken, and then we're making a sauce for it later. So. Clip for this is a little bit wonky because I was actually filming on my iPad mini that is ancient. It's several years old, but I was using my phone to watch videos, so that's why. So I'm actually going to cover these now. I'm going to set this aside. This is morning prep, and then I will put everything together a little bit later in the day. I'm going to take some chicken thighs now that have been defrosted. I'm just dabbing them dry just to remove the excess moisture. And then I'm going to dice this up into about, I don't know, bite-sized pieces, whatever that means to you. You can make larger pieces if you'd like. I would say probably about an inch or so is what I did. So I'm going to dice this up or chop this up, and then I'm going to set this aside while I make the sauce for the dish. Starting up with the sauce now, just adding some chicken bouillon with water, and then I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients. We've got some soy sauce here, again, recipe down below, and then we have some white wine vinegar that I'm using. I believe, from what I recall, the recipe required just plain white vinegar, but I didn't have any because I used it for my Dawn Miracle cleaner thing that I tried in the shower. Olive oil, cornstarch, black pepper, mix all of that up, and then we are going to set that aside and bring back the chicken. Here is the chicken that's been hanging out in the fridge for most of the day. I am going to prep this now by coating it with some cornstarch, salt, and pepper. Adding some olive oil to the skillet now, and then I'm going to soften the onions and the celery that I had chopped up earlier that day. I did put a lid on it to sort of get this process going a little bit faster, so just moving that around. If you find that it's starting to burn a little bit, you can add a little bit of water. So I do end up doing that just because I didn't want it to brown too much. Put a lid on it again, try to get all of that sort of that condensation, steamy, breezy kind of quality going on here. So we are just stirring this around and then adding a little bit more oil. I thought it needed just a little bit more in the skillet so it didn't stick. It just seemed a little dry. I don't know how to describe it, but you just kind of go with what you think will work. Made a little space in the middle now to add the chicken that's been sitting with the cornstarch, salt, and pepper. I'm going to mix this around. You're supposed to cook it until it's about halfway-ish done, so not entirely cooked. The celery, the onions are going to continue to cook, as will the chicken once we add the sauce. Get all of the sauce in that skillet here, and I'm just going to mix it around so everything's coated with all of the seasonings, all of the flavors, you know, all of the stuff. Sorry if you can hear my dog snoring. Can you hear my dog snoring? Anyway, put the lid back on. It's going to simmer. I don't think the recipe said to cover it while it simmers, but that's exactly what I did. Just removing it here to see how it's all doing. At this point, oh gosh, I think you can really hear my dog snoring. Sorry about that. I'm trying to do the voiceover in the bedroom. In any case, so here we go, just mixing everything through. Once it's all cooked, chicken is fully cooked through in the middle. It is ready to serve. Just gonna give it a little taste to make sure I don't need to adjust any of the seasonings. But there you go. That is it right there, served with some white rice. Maybe a side of broccoli would be really good with this, but this is our black pepper chicken. Lastly, we have the pièce de résistance, that is the Easter ham. I am making the glaze. This is a recipe that I made several years ago and is just my go-to now. The glaze is so delicious. It's just a real simple tangerine and sage kind of butter, brown sugar. Oh, it's so easy. Really simple flavors, and I just I love it. My dad loved this when I made it every single year, and he's not a mushy guy. He didn't really express his feelings, but he let me know that he loved this ham. So this is what I make all the time for Easter. We've got a stick of butter. I put about a cup of brown sugar in here. Recipe for this will be down below. I think originally it was like a Tyler Florence recipe from the Food Network. I've sort of just kind of winged it year after year these days, since I just make it my own. But I'm whisking everything together. You'll see as you do this, it doesn't really come together until you add the tangerine juice. The brown sugar and the butter kind of separate a bit. But once you add the tangerine juice, for some reason, don't know the scientific reason, it comes together into this nice ooey gooey sweet glaze. So I used about 4 cuties, clementine tangerines. I don't worry if I get any pulp in this. It just enhances it even more. So I'm going to squeeze about 4 of those tangerines in here, and then I'm going to mix everything together. After a bit of time, once it starts to really heat up, the sugar combined with the butter and the tangerine juice starts to become this frothy sort of mixture, and you kind of think to yourself, this is not a glaze, it's just a bunch of bubbles. But you'll see towards the end, once it cools down and the bubbles subside, it will turn into this glaze. Now, since you're working with a lot of sugar here, sugar gets so hot so quickly, so just be really careful as you work that you don't splash anything around, because you'll burn, so you'll burn yourself. So just watch this really carefully. I don't use a thermometer or anything like that, like a candy thermometer, to see if it's gotten to a certain stage. I just kind of watch it, and then if I look like it's just bubbling up too much, I turn the heat down. I'm really just looking for the tangerine juice to kind of evaporate a little bit, and so this reduces down, and I do whisk it through to just make sure everything stays combined and it doesn't separate. I have switched to a spatula here just so that I can move everything around a little bit more, and I don't want to really add air to it, so I'm just taking a spatula and just moving everything around. Once it looks like the liquid is sort of thickened a little bit, I take a few drops to see, once it's cooled a teeny bit, if it is sort of a glazy-like consistency. It's not super runny and it's not too thick. I tasted it to see what I thought, and I did add that last tangerine, so that brought the total up to 4 tangerines. And here we go. That's basically it. I do another little taste here. I'm happy with the way it tasted. I'm going to move this to the back burner to start cooling, and then I'm going to add the very last ingredient, a savory component to this. That is sage leaves. The flavor of the sage with the tangerine is just, I don't know how to describe it. It's really addictive. I could let this cook further into a candy, and I swear I would eat it. It would just taste so good. So I'm adding the sage leaves now. I ended up taking, one of those little refrigerated packets. I ended up using all of the leaves in there. You just kind of do it to your own taste. I'm letting this infuse in the residual heat of that very hot sugar butter combination. I'm kind of trying to bruise up the sage leaves just to, again, just draw out the essential oils or the flavor of the sage, but it smells. It's just, as soon as it hits that hot sugar, it smells so good. So that is going to just hang out. We're going to cool. It's going to thicken and become a nice glaze for the ham. Moving on to the second part. So my plan was to finish cooking the Brussels sprouts at my mom's place. And this is the recipe I'm usually using. It's from the Lemonade Cookbook. It's such a amazing restaurant that we have here in the LA area. And it's just one of my favorite places. So I was really stoked that they came out with their own cookbook and I could recreate a bunch of their recipes. They have lots of salads, super known for their salads. But I am doing the Brussels sprouts. Rob went to Costco, picked up the Brussels sprouts. These were gigantic. I had never seen Brussels sprouts so huge. They were basically almost like mini cabbages. But so I'm just, not even quartering them. I think they cut them up into like 8 sections. Excuse me. And I am putting them in a large Ziploc bag so that I can transport it to my mom's, the plan of which was thwarted later. You will see I end up starting to cook this at home, but I am prepping these so I can take them to my mom's. So with the Brussels sprouts done, I'm going to make the sherry vinaigrette now. Now this is really supposed to be like served as a cold salad, but with a time crunch in the morning, it's Easter Sunday. The guys had gone off to church. I had sung at church the night before, so I'm home doing the prep work for our Easter lunch. We do Easter lunch usually. I just totally spaced, and I didn't realized I didn't have enough time. So I served it sort of like a warm salad at my mom's. But here is the sherry vinaigrette. We've got some shallot here. Now, it's called a sherry vinaigrette because you're supposed to use sherry vinegar, but I threw mine out in my declutter because it was just way old. I'm using white wine vinegar here. I have some balsamic. We have some pepper. We have a bit of olive oil. We have, what else do we have in there? We're going to add some sugar. There's the olive oil, a bit of canola oil. This is the dressing. And I'm going to pack this up because my intention was to prep this at my mom's. So I'm just mixing all of this up here. I did forget to add the salt at this point, but I add it a little bit later on. I'm packing that up because I think I'm going to my mom's to make this. And moving on to the ham. I have scored the ham. I used a fully cooked Farmer John's, just a regular shank bone-in ham. It's going into the oven for about an hour to sort of pre-cooked. Again, this is fully cooked, so it's just to warm up. And then this is about a 10-pound ham. I paid $10 for it. Sorry, honey baked. You're really good, but I will never buy a honey baked ham. This is just such a good ham. But here you go. This is the glaze. You can see it has really thickened up into a nice ooey gooey mixture with that sage and the butter and the tangerine and the sugar. So I'm adding this to the really hot ham that I just pulled out of the oven. I'm using a spatula just to kind of make sure it gets into all of those crevices, all of the nice scoring. Yeah, so I'm just going to continue doing this. I start up at the top because, with that hot ham, all of the glaze is just going to drip down to the bottom. So here we go. There you go. It is glazed with about half of the glaze or so, maybe a little bit more. I reserved half of it so that when I pull it out of the oven, so that ham goes back into the oven uncovered this time. And I'm pulling it out here. I'm going to let that sit for a little bit, and then I'm going to put a second coat of glaze on it, and that will be ready to serve. So here is the ham pulled out of the oven. I just basically cooked it to, per instructions. And again, this is fully cooked, so I'm really not cooking it. I'm just warming it up. And we don't mind eating room temp ham, so I'm doing this in the morning. So here we go. Look at all that fat. Oh, that glistening fat is just so yummy. Here's that second coat of the glaze after just a little bit of cooling down, a little bit. It's still going to be nice and drippy because it's still really warm. And then I'm going to just do a little bit of base, just kind of take some of the liquid from the bottom of the roasting pan, and then I'm just going to hit it with a little bit of the juices. And then that's pretty much ready to transport for Easter lunch. So here I am now starting the Brussels sprout cooking process. I am parboiling these Brussels sprouts. I'm going to do it in 2 batches, you get the idea here, but I'm going to parboil them. And then while the Brussels sprouts are still nice and warm, I am going to add a little bit of the vinaigrette that I had made. And that way the Brussels sprouts sort of absorb all of the flavors, that kind of thing. And then I'm going to transport it that way to my mom. So it's going to already have a little bit of the vinaigrette. It's going to have had a chance to cool down just a teeny bit, and then I'm going to finish cooking it off in her oven. So here is the first batch of Brussels sprouts, all mixed through with some of the vinaigrette. I am adding the second batch here that has been parboiled just for about a couple minutes. If you're interested in the recipe, I will see if I can find a link to the cookbook, and I'll put it down below in the description box. I don't feel right about posting it and rewriting it because it's copyrighted, but feel free to check out the link. Hopefully I'll be able to find it and you can get yourself a copy of the Lemonade Cookbook. They have so many recipes, so many delicious salads, but in addition to that, they've got stews and braises and desserts and lemonade, of course. Lemonade, amazing lemonades, all packed up, ready to go. We are at my mom's right now, and I'm going to finish cooking the Brussels sprouts in the oven. So I'm going to roast those in a nice hot oven, and then I'm going to add the rest of the vinaigrette with some Parmesan cheese, and I'm going to serve it like a warm salad. So this is it here, Brussels sprouts from the Lemonade Cookbook.
Just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time